Hi everyone, welcome to this new lesson. In this video, I'm going to teach you the difference between these two words, yapmak and etmek. Both of these words are used as helping verbs in Turkish language and are two of the most important and most commonly used helping verbs. But the problem is that both of them have the exact same dictionary meanings. In Turkish, the word yapmak means to do, perform, practice, or to make. And the word etmek, like the word yapmak, also means to do, perform, practice, or to make. So, considering these dictionary meaning of these two words, we can assume that both of them are exactly the same. But the problem is that they're not. And most of the times, they cannot be interchangeably used. And as a foreign learner of this language, it is actually a bit difficult to understand. When I was learning Turkish, I asked many of my Turkish friends to explain the difference between these two words, and none of them could actually clearly point out the difference between them. And I suppose that they learn the difference. They learn the correct usage of these words as they're growing. They come across phrasal verbs and they just learn it. So I sat down and I tried to study a lot about this myself and tried to figure out the difference between these two words from the point of view of a foreign learner. And I found out that the context actually varies, meaning they're used in different contexts. So I've mentioned this here. The word yapmak and etmek, they're used in different contexts and they have different uses, and most of the times they cannot be interchangeably used. Well, in most cases, there are exceptions to that as well. So, considering these differences, we can say that they're not exactly the same. To further understand this, let's look at some examples of phrasal verbs that are formed using the words yapmak and those that are formed using the word etmek. So, when I was looking at these examples, I figured that most of the phrasal verbs that are formed with yapmak, they involve some physical activity. I mean, something is performed, something's created, and some physical activity is involved in the process. For example, yemek yapmak, to cook or to make food. I mean, you're physically performing the action, you're doing something, and something is being created as a result that you can physically see as well. So, for example, resim yapmak, again, it's a physical activity. You're doing something, you're creating something. Exercise yapmak is also a physical activity. Makyaj yapmak, görüşme yapmak, gürültü yapmak, iş yapmak, all of them, they involve some kind of physical activity. Whereas in the case of the word etmek, I observe that most of the phrasal verbs that are formed using this word are they involve some kind of mental activity. It's sometimes a feeling or a sentiment, that kind of thing. It's not really. It doesn't involve a physical activity. So, for example, arzu etmek, hayal etmek, nefret etmek, rahatsız etmek, ısrar etmek, teşekkür etmek, tahmin etmek, they all have something to do with a mental activity and not really a physical one. Let's look at these examples closely side by side. So yemek yapmak, it means to cook or make food. So here some physical activity is involved because you're cutting food, you're mixing, and you're cooking. I mean, it's a physical process. Whereas in the case of arzu etmek, no physical activity is involved. You see, it's a feel, it's a desire, it's a wish, it's an expression. So it's not really a physical activity. So we use the word etmek. And I observed, see, in other examples as well, hayal etmek, you're dreaming, nefret etmek, to hate, and rahatsız etmek, to disturb or annoy someone. And I figured that these two words are a bit comparable. So rahatsız etmek means to disturb or annoy, whereas gurultu yapmak means to make noise. They're a bit comparable. I mean, you can consider these examples side by side to understand. So gurultu yapmak, there is some physical activity involved. You're making noise. I mean, you're being noisy. Whereas rahatsız etmek means to disturb or annoy. And again, annoy is a mental state, it's a feeling. Also, being disturbed, it's a mental state. You're being disturbed. So here we're going to use rahatsız etmek, whereas here we're going to use the word yapmak. Also, like teşekkür etmek, you're thanking someone. Israr etmek, you're insisting someone. Tahmin etmek, you're guessing, presuming, you're forecasting something. So these are all mental activities. There's no clear physical activity involved here, whereas in the case of yapmak, there is. For example, iş yapmak, you're doing some work, you're performing some activity. Okay, moving on. So, like I mentioned earlier, when I was preparing this lesson and I was studying for this, I asked many of my Turkish friends to help me understand the difference between these two words. And one of my friends, who actually knows very good English as well, said that the difference between these two Turkish words is like the difference between the two English words, which are do and make. I mean, she said that these two English words confuse her a lot, just like the words yapmak and etmek confuse me a lot. And after she had mentioned that, I actually realized that that is true. I mean, these two words are confusing for a foreign learner. So let's see the dictionary meaning of these two words. The word make means to produce or prepare something, to cause something, or to perform an action. And the word do, also like the word make, means to produce, prepare, or create something, to perform or take part in or achieve something, to act or take action. Now, here's the thing, when my friend mentioned that, I actually googled the difference between make and do, and they're very detailed explanation about the difference between these two words that's available online. But that was unfortunately not the case for the Turkish words yapmak and etmek. So when I was searching about do and make, there were big lists that clearly pointed out where you use make and where you use do, and that's actually very easy and good. Now, since English is a second language to me, I don't really need to see those um, explanations anymore. I mean, sometimes I do, but most of the times I don't need to. So because I've come across those words, those phrasal verbs already, and now I know. But for her, it is difficult to understand where we use make and do, and she has a lot of thinking to do. Okay, this we're using make here because of so and so reason, and we're using do here because of so and so reason. And yes, she is right, because most of the times these words cannot be interchangeably used to make a phrasal verb. So now I've also added a list of some very common phrasal verbs that are made with the word do and those that are made with make. So make a wish, make an effort, make a profit, make a visit, make peace, make sense. Now you make sense and now you don't do sense. There's a difference, and there is an explanation available online to point out. I mean, to understand why we're using make here and why we're using do here. Okay, so for do the dishes, do the laundry, do a favor, do someone good, do harm, or do wrong. Now, for a foreign learner of English, it is a bit difficult to understand that you make a mistake, but you do wrong. And when she asked me to explain why we're doing wrong and making a mistake, I couldn't clearly explain as well. I mean, why am I not making wrong and why am I not doing a mistake? I couldn't clearly explain that as well. I just know it. I mean, I've heard it and I just know it. And if somebody says it elsewise, I will be able to point out, no, that's not how you say it. But I don't know the grammatical rules and the whys behind this. Okay, so I've also added this slide here where I explain how the word yapmak and etmek are different, how they are used in different contexts, and some of the times how they can be actually interchangeably used as well. So looking at this example, tatil yapmak means to have a holiday or a vacation, whereas tatil etmek means to close temporarily or suspend. So the context is obviously very different. In the case of tatil yapmak, it's like when you're telling somebody that I went for a vacation, or I am going to go for a vacation, a proper holiday. Whereas tatil etmek is like when the university announces, or when an organization announces that it's going to remain closed for a day or two because of so and so reason. Like for example, during this coronavirus pandemic, when my university announced, they used tatil etmek, tatil edildi actually, which is a tense form of etmek. So you see how the context really varies. Now looking at the second example, ziyaret yapmak means to visit, whereas ziyaret etmek means to pay a visit. So ziyaret yapmak is like when you're visiting a place. For example, you're going to the beach or some museum or some place. Whereas ziyaret etmek is to pay a visit. I mean, for example, when you're sick and your friends come to pay a visit to you. So the context is different. Now, you might point out that ziyaret etmek is not a mental process, it's not a mental activity. It involves some physical activity as well because you're walking, you're paying a visit to someone. It involves physical activity, and yes, it does. But when I talked about how it involves a mental process, I said that's it's mostly the case. It's not always the case. And I know that's confusing, and that's according to my friend, that's exactly how they feel when they're trying to understand the difference between the words do and make. And according to her, that's how karma works. Okay, moving on, we're going to look at some other examples where the word yapmak and etmek can be actually interchangeably used. So it's and the context or the meaning does not change at all. So hata yapmak means to make a mistake, and hata etmek, like hata yapmak, also means to make a mistake or be wrong. So you can say ben hata yaptım, or you can also say ben hata ettim. The context doesn't change, the meaning doesn't change. Also, seyahat yapmak, to travel, and seyahat etmek, to travel. So there is no difference between these two words. Now I've prepared some lists of some of the common phrasal verbs that are formed using the word yapmak and those that are formed using the word etmek, and some where both of them can be actually interchangeably used. The context may vary. I've mentioned the English meanings as well here. Now, the reason that I prepare these lists is to help you all, because when I was learning Turkish and even when I was learning English, I used to keep such screenshots in my cell phone because that way I can go through them whenever I get time. And I suppose that it works really well. It helps you memorize, and also it's good for a quick revision as well. So go on, take your screenshot and share it with your friends as well. Now, in the remaining part of this video, I'm only going to read out these lists to help you see how these words are pronounced correctly. So if you're not really looking for that, you can just skip this and move to the next lesson. So starting with yapmak. Ağırlık yapmak, to weigh something. Alışveriş yapmak, to do shopping. Ayrım yapmak, to discriminate or differentiate. Bağış yapmak, to donate. Barış yapmak, to make peace. Çay yapmak, to make tea. Çeviri yapmak, to translate. Egzersiz yapmak, to do exercise. Görüşme yapmak, to have an interview or meet. Gösteri yapmak, to demonstrate. İş yapmak, to do some work or job. Kahve yapmak, to make coffee. Kek yapmak, to make cake. Maç yapmak, to hold a match. Makyaj yapmak, to put on makeup. Ödev yapmak, to do homework. Panik yapmak, to panic. Pratik yapmak, to practice. Resim yapmak, to paint or draw a picture. Salata yapmak, to make a salad. Saygısızlık yapmak, to disrespect or disregard. Spor yapmak, to play a sport or do some sport. Temizlik yapmak, to do cleaning. Ütü yapmak, to do the ironing. Yanlış yapmak, to do something wrong. Yemek yapmak, to cook or make food. Yeniden yapmak, to redo or remake. Now for etmek. Acele etmek, to rush or hurry up. Anons etmek, to make an announcement. Arzu etmek, to desire. Dans etmek, to dance. Devam etmek, to continue or carry on with. Dua etmek, to pray. Elde etmek, to achieve, acquire, attain or gain. Farz etmek, to assume or suppose. Göç etmek, to immigrate. Hayal etmek, to dream. Hediye etmek, give as a gift. İcat etmek, to invent something from scratch. İkram etmek, to make an offer. İltifat etmek, to make a compliment to someone. İptal etmek, to cancel or call off. Israr etmek, to insist. Kabul etmek, to accept. Kavga etmek, to fight or quarrel. Nefret etmek, to hate. Rahatsız etmek, to disturb. Şikayet etmek, to complain. Sohbet etmek, to chat. Tahmin etmek, to guess, presume or forecast. Tamir etmek, to fix or repair. Telefon etmek, to call or on phone. Teşekkür etmek, to thank. Yardım etmek, to help. Now the list of phrasal verbs that can be formed using the words yapmak and etmek both. However, the contextual meaning of these words may or may not vary. So, for example, banyo yapmak, to have a bath. Banyo etmek, bath or develop a film or photograph. Gürültü yapmak, to make noise. Gürültü etmek, to be too noisy or make noise. Hata yapmak, to make a mistake. Hata etmek, be wrong or make a mistake. İyilik yapmak, to do somebody a favor. İyilik etmek, to do good towards or do a favor. Kötülük yapmak, to do harm or something evil. Kötülük etmek, to do somebody harm. Park yapmak and park etmek both mean to park. Seyahat yapmak and seyahat etmek both mean to travel. Tatil yapmak, to have a holiday or vacation. Tatil etmek, to close temporarily or suspend. Ziyaret yapmak, to make a visit. Ziyaret etmek, to pay a visit. Well, that's all for this video. I hope this was helpful to you and that you continue learning with me. Thank you for watching this. I'll see you in the next lesson.